to our July 17th Friday Focus, and we are really excited to be back in West Tennessee again. We are live in Jackson with one of our Zoom stars. Zoom with Celeste is never dull, and we are very excited to be here this morning with Celeste and Jason and Carol and several of the Madison County Master Gardeners. So welcome back to our first live Zoom of July. I hope you enjoyed the video a couple weeks ago from our Knox County crew. Of course, we have a live one today, and then 2 weeks from today, we'll be live in Chattanooga, and then we've got lots of fun videos for you in August. So don't worry, we are going to keep up with some of the great Friday Focus content. And without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Celeste, and she's going to kick it off with some information about how Master Gardeners contribute here on the station. And because we know y'all missed summer celebration and it kind of broke all of our hearts a little bit, we are going to get some annual and perennial and woody ornamental trial tours. So Celeste, it is all yours.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here today. We're glad that we could have a turn on the rotation of the Friday Focus sessions and have an opportunity to show off the things here at the West Tennessee Research and Education Center. So much work goes into growing these plants, getting them out in the trials, and then sharing that information with the community. And so we for sure wanted to make sure that Master Gardeners across the state still knew that there was things that are still going on. Just because of our COVID doesn't mean that we think all work ceases, right? So today, as you will see, let me swap we've got several Madison County Master Gardeners. Hey, y'all! And they're out here potting up some stuff for Jason. Jason, for the fall plant sale, you want to tell us a little bit about it, Jason?
Yes, they are potting echinacea and some what we're called the toilet paper plant. It's actually a verbascum or a mullein, but we kind of make fun of it and sort of toilet paper. You can use it for toilet paper or bandages as well. And also an aster called snow glory. So they're potting them up. These are things that will be available at the fall plant sale, which we hope we're going to have live on site on October the 1st. Details hopefully will be coming out a little bit later, but yeah, they're working on that today. And it has been a different spring without our help. We actually went without them for months and months and months, and they're back here today doing a little bit for us.
And so I just kind of wanted to give y'all a little sneak peek. I'm on top of a trailer. Oh, and I jumped down. Y'all can kind of see how we've got things going on. This is how things generally go. They pile up our potting mix down the middle of a trailer here and get their tray of plugs, whatever that might be, or sometimes they're just bumping things up to larger containers. You can see these were started out in these little 4-inch pots and bumping those up to gallons so they can get big and beautiful. And sometimes we start with plugs. They're generally doing the same thing in early spring. Look how pretty. And so I want to introduce y'all to one of our, we call these folks our greenhouse crew, and there's some others that couldn't be here with us today. And this is Miss Nancy Blair.
Hi there.
And I've just asked her to say a few words to y'all a little bit about, you know, what the greenhouse crew does and how they help Jason out and get things ready for the grounds.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. We usually start sometime early March, late February, trying to get ready for our first big sale of the year, which is was actually the first Saturday in May. And then we transition from that to our next plant sale, which is at Summer Celebration in July, usually the hottest day in July. And then we have
kind of like today, huh?
Kind of like today, yes. Actually, it was scheduled for last Thursday, and it was very warm. So, and then we hope to have, as Jason already mentioned, our sale in October, which is the first Thursday in October always. So we start out with propagating some plants.
Nancy, let's walk in the greenhouse and show them some things in there.
Okay, cool.
We start off with either propagating some plants from plants that we've saved from previous years, or we start with seeding and then taking the real small seedlings and bumping them up to 4-packs, 6-packs, 2x2s, 3x3s, whatever. it takes, and then hopefully be able to get our plants ready for that first sale in May. This year we weren't able to have that because of COVID, but we were able to have some online sales, and that worked out, I think, fairly well. It wasn't nearly as big a sale as we would have had if it was a live sale, but we were able to kind of be a little bit more flexible.
And had plenty enough left over to make our grounds look great, which y'all will get to see here in just a little bit.
Absolutely. And Jason was able to donate some plants to some local businesses and nonprofits as a result of having some plants left over. So we were real proud to be able to share our plants with some of the other people around the area.
Yeah, some of the Madison County Master Gardeners jumped in and took over the planters for the downtown city area of Jackson. Also, some of the planters in Huntington. We're also providing some plants to the Women of Hope, a nonprofit organization that works closely with women with issues here in Jackson. And also, we are able to provide some plants for the University of Memphis Lambeth campus, who is short on funds this year due to the COVID outbreak. So it was wonderful. And those Master Gardeners actually worked with all those projects. They took lead on working in very small groups, sometimes even by themselves. And so we did make good use of those plants. So it was great.
And if you can imagine, you see all these empty spaces here on the tables. Believe it or not, these were smack full. Several times.
we do a lot of moving plants. That's one of our major jobs, is moving things so that we can make room for new things as they come in.
You know, the word never stops. We're actually propagating now for next year. So this is Baptisia that we're attempting to root for next year. So we'll have it for hopefully the spring sale. And then we've got a hardy gardenia that we propagated from the Master Gardener's house. It's been in her house since the late 60s. And so been hardy. And then we've got a few other plants over here, a cool viburnum, a cranberry bush viburnum that we're propagating. So, you know, these actually probably wouldn't be available till even 2022. So it takes a while. You have to plan way ahead for these. So these are our propagation benches where we do things from cuttings, and then again for the sales and for the grounds as well.
Awesome. Well,
we try to save some things over the winter so that we can use those to start with in the spring. And as I said, we start February, March, full force, and there probably are there 15 of us?
Just 15 of the greenhouse crew.
15 in the greenhouse crew, and oftentimes we'll put in anywhere between 60 and 80 hours a week.
So all total, we look back at last year's data a while back, 120 to 140 hours per week the greenhouse crew puts in March through the end of May. So, yeah.
Okay, great.
Good job.
So I really appreciate y'all sharing a little bit with us and giving us a look at the greenhouse. And I think we will start our journey to our next location that we want to share with you all. So we will go and bid adieu to our Master Gardener worker friends.
So
thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Have fun. Don't get hot. Take a break.
So as we're walking by, this is our cold frame. This is where in the wintertime, we protect our trees and shrubs that are grown for the sale or the grounds, but wouldn't necessarily be out a party if they were setting above ground without some protection. In the summertime, it's converted to a shade structure. So there's a shade cloth on it. We grow our shade plants in there for the summer months, again, for the grounds or for the fall plant sale that we've got going on. So yeah, we're walking across the grounds here. You know, the research center is a little over 600 acres. The main focus here is cotton, corn, and soybeans. And about 50 employees work with those crops. Myself and my assistant Carson, who hopefully you'll meet in a little bit, are the two horticulture staff that work on the grounds here. And then we hire between 4 and 5 students during the summer. Because of COVID this year, we were only able to hire 4. We want to be careful with social distancing, and we had a really good crew this year. A very different environment this year with COVID, without our spring sale, without summer celebration. So we were actually being able to work a little bit slower pace and keep our distance, which is important. And things are looking good. The gardens are still open. They're open daylight to dark year round. And we invite you to come out and take advantage of the beautiful garden.
They are beautiful. And before we get too close on them, I want to give y'all a shot of these crepe myrtles right here. Can you see how beautiful these are? And they provide some of the main shade for this area of our hydrangea collection. Marcus Red. Look how beautiful these trunks are. They've been pruned properly, not chopped on.
So this is a coma crepe myrtle that's been here probably since the mid 90s, and we've slowly limbed them up, and they have gotten, of course, some size on them, but a beautiful, beautiful crepe myrtle for our landscape. It's sometimes considered a dwarf or semi-dwarf, but it does mature to a large size.
So we're making our way right now to the rain garden here at the West Tennessee Research and Education Center. This was installed maybe about 8 years ago, possibly 10?
5 or 6.
5 or 6? Maybe we'll say 6 because it was here when I came, so they must have just installed it. And as you can see, it's a slight depression, as is the most rain gardens because they're meant to collect runoff. And we thought this was the perfect area for them to install because there's a large house here. This used to be the director's house for the center. There's a lot of impervious surface, and it actually had a natural type of depression here in this area. And so they excavated just to increase that so that it can catch water that comes off the rooftop and the other impervious surfaces, and it has kind of evolved throughout the years. What you're seeing in here right now are not the plants really that they started with. Some are. Over time, you know, we experimented with things and have found out things that work and things that do not. I believe in the beginning they had quite a bit of like mist flower. We even have tried lobelia, the red cardinal flower. And here in West Tennessee, those just aren't persistent for us. So we've kind of transitioned to some of these more hardier perennials. And we've got some baptisia here that has really grown out and filled out this area very nicely. Northwind switchgrass, I believe. Here in the back, you can see some of those ornamental grasses filling in those spots. Right here in the middle, this is a willow leaf spice bush. So the host plant for your swallowtail, spice bush swallowtail. It's really pretty. We've been pruning on it. It kind of has a crazy growth habit over time. Some other plants we'll feature in here. We've got Joe Pieweed. It's super, super tall. It's like at least 10 feet tall right now. Last year, we installed some little Henry Itea, or sweet spire, some people call. We've got one there and another over here on this side. And this is the deepest area of the basin. So you can tell I've kind of walked down into the garden. So we've put some of the plants that can tolerate longer periods of submersion here. And right in the middle, we have that sugar shack buttonbush. Yes, sugar shack is the cultivar and buttonbush is your common name. So we're hoping after those get some growth on them, they'll be beautiful. And this is your Asclepias, one of the perennial swamp types that can take some more submersion in water. And we also installed last year an Amsonia, a thread leaf Amsonia. Some people call it the Arkansas blue. It can tolerate periods of submersion as well. And so those deeper areas are going to be the areas that hold more water. Now we do have some more changes in store for this garden. Jason got a cut leaf elderberry bush for us that we are going to put right here. You see where my finger is pointing? We're going to take out those 2 switch grasses and put in that elderberry right there. We are also going to put in 2 native hibiscus, perennial hibiscus. One is white and one is red. And we're going to kind of put those there in the center too to give it some height and some color in the middle of the summer. And the areas that we struggle most with, which is strange, you think that would be the easiest, is your zone 1, the shallowest area, right here in the front of the garden. We've tried cone flowers and some different types of rudbeckia, and the issue here is that the slope drops off so drastically that the areas that we would have hoped to put these gets too much water, and then the plants don't survive. So we're going to experiment with some other things filling in there and hopefully keep y'all updated as we go along. And that is pretty much it for the rain garden. So we're going to head this direction and say a few things about our collection of perennial hibiscus here. As you can see, we've got tons of them, and they're beautiful. Look how big these blooms are compared to my hand. Isn't that gorgeous? Let me ask Jason. Jason, do you have any idea what this one is?
We'll be asking these names.
I know. I'm sorry. We lost some of our name tags.
Let's introduce Carol. She's right here with us.
Carol's here. Everybody say hey to Carol.
Everybody. We love these wonderful perennial hibiscus and these fabulous hybrids with the big dinner plate sized flowers, but the problem has always been this insect that just absolutely tears them up, and that is a sawfly larva. Just looks like Swiss cheese, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it really doesn't hurt the plant if you don't want to treat for it, but breeders got to work and they used one of our native hibiscus that has a fuzzy leaf, and they found out that the insects did not like that fuzzy leaf. So hybrids, and the one that's really kind of famous for this is called Moy Grande. Moy Grande was bred by Dr. Moy out in Texas, although he was an escapee from China. And these are fabulous, big, hot pink blooms, and you see there's very little damage. Not that they don't touch it at all, but it's certainly resistant because of that fuzzy leaf. I guess insects don't like fuzz in their mouth any more than we do.
It's definitely nothing as compared to the others.
Right. And as you know, we breed more. They're trying to get this trade into more of these wonderful perennial hibiscus. I guess you mentioned they're great for the rain garden because in our area where we see them in the wild, the hibiscus mosquitoes is going to be in our edges of our swamps and our ditches, and are starting to bloom right about now. So keep your eye peeled for special forms. Usually white when you find them in the wild, or pink, but they've now got all these fabulous colors.
And those were the ones I was referring to when I said we were going to add those those native perennial hibiscus to the rain garden. And I failed to mention that we also have winter berries over there. They were on the right side of the garden. I didn't give y'all a close-up of that.
Carol mentioned the sawfly larvae. It also Japanese beetles can be an issue on them. And again, that fuzzy leaf, they're less a problem to bees. If you are going to treat for sawfly, you want to be careful. You don't want to harm the bees. BT, unfortunately, does not work. BT works on caterpillars, but sawfly is not actual caterpillars. So unfortunately, that organic alternative, which does not harm the bees, does not work on the sawfly. So yeah, look for those better selections, but also just learn to live with it. I mean, it's still blooming beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, even if the leaves are lacy, we can just tell people that that's what they're supposed to look like. We can call it something like lace leaf.
And by the way, this particular cultivar, if you like this kind of sprinkly variegated pink in there, it's called peppermint schnapps.
Yes, can y'all see? Now you can see the variegation in it. When I'm far away, you can't really see the variegation. It's light pink with a dark pink variegation and a dark pink eye. It's really pretty.
There's oodles now of cultivars. I want to mention the ones with the dark foliage.
Oh, yes, real quickly, yes.
Midnight Marble.
Yes, we think it's Midnight Marble, but there's another one called Cranberry Crush that's very similar that I have at home, but look at how compact.
Yeah, very compact in comparison if you're looking for something for a smaller area.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have 4 different cultivars of hardy hibiscus at the fall plant sale. They would have been offered at summer celebration. 2 of which have dark foliage. The other 2 are green leaf cultivars.
Yay.
So look for those that are fall plants. So if you're not familiar with hardy hibiscus, they freeze to the ground in the winter and they come back each year from the spring. There are all kinds of hibiscus. You may be familiar with Rosa Sharon. You're probably also familiar with the tropical hibiscus with a shiny leaf that you have to bring in or you let it freeze. But these die the ground each year and come back when it gets hot. Some people this year was all panicked. Theirs wasn't coming back. Well, it's got to be warm. The soil's got to warm up before they come up.
It's a heat-loving plant, like the hibiscus group in general. These are plants that perform well for us in the dog days of summer.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're beautiful. You know, people are always looking for good options that have that tropical feel to put around their pools and sitting areas outside. And those mixed with, canna and hardy hibiscus and, hardy banana and other things like that really give a really cool tropical feel, to a landscape.
I want to mention the gecko tree here that was planted in the 60s. It was accidentally cut down by a lawnmower, and when it came back out, it was a young plant, came back out and did this multi-trunk thing. Now, we don't recommend you go home and do this to yours. Probably wouldn't do this, but we're very proud of this tree. We're very fortunate that also it is a male, so it doesn't produce a stinky fruit. In the fall, this tree is glorious.
So pretty. And as we're walking,
I'm going to bounce you one question. We had a question about how long the rain garden typically maintained moisture? I mean, I know we often size those, 24 to 48 hours, but I wondered if you wanted to say anything specific about your site.
Yes, ours will drain within 48 hours. We've been monitoring it, and it really has been filling up quite often with all these rains we've been having, and it does fully drain within 48 hours.
This is Red Rooster Crepe Myrtle. This is bred by Dr. Michael Durr from the University of Georgia, now since retired, but a beautiful red. It's actually my favorite red. There's also Dynamite, Centennial Spirit, and Red Rocket, but Carol's shaking her head over here. This is the best of the red. Red Rooster, it's part of the Gardener's Confidence collection. It's a little bit harder to find, unfortunately, but it's a great plant. We have crepe myrtle bark scale now in Tennessee, and we do have to treat for them here. We do, Celeste and the Master Gardeners and the Utah Gardens have a wonderful publication on treating them. And I probably wouldn't go out and plant a dozen, but I would definitely include 1 or 2 in my landscape.
And it's so bright and sunny out here that the video isn't really doing justice to the bright and vibrantness of this red. It is a true deep red. So if you're looking for that in a crepe myrtle, it's really beautiful.
I know we're doing the columnar plants later at the end of the thing, but I didn't want to bypass this wonderful specimen of Taylor right here because I think it's the oldest that we have in the garden right now. It's a form of our native eastern red cedar that was selected for this wonderful narrow habit. And we'll get more into the reasons we like these columnar plants when I do that again.
Very drought tolerant plants. So yeah, wonderful. So we're walking through the conifer collection. We have 2 areas of conifer. One we call the old conifer bed, and one we call the new. And this is the new, meaning it's about 7 or 8 years newer than the old one. And so the collection is of conifers that, for the most part, we're trying to choose things that are heat and drought tolerant. We are a trial garden as well as a public garden. So yes, we plant things here that don't do well. That's how we find out. That's the way you can find out. So you'll see a lot of plants in here. What you won't see are spruce, fir. We also struggle with a lot of pines, but you're going to see junipers, a lot of arborvitaes, a lot of thujas, a lot of chamiciferous, which in general do really well in our climate.
And they don't always look great, but like you said, there's a reason why we're leaving those so people can see, even though you think that might be something that you would desire, maybe you shouldn't because it's not looking so great in a landscape in our area.
One thing we all, I think, have a tendency, when we laid this out, we thought everything had plenty room. Well, it's just everything's grows. And even those little cute conifers that come in those 3 little pots, a lot of them grow up to be big guys. I mean, you can buy Jantar and DeGroot spires in one of those little pots, and that thing ends up being 15 feet tall at maturity.
Like, look at that little guy. Don't we wish we could have a plant that stayed just like that? But
yeah, that one would probably be 12 to 15 feet at maturity. So.
Jason, that's a splendid place to talk about the double trunk thing that just made.
Oh, yeah.
So this is your great spire, and this one we've let form multiple leaders. We have some in the garden where we kept single, and personally, I don't like this look. Some people do. The danger with this is if you have a snow load, and you can see right now how limber it is, even in a heavy rain sometimes. And if this bends over in a snow load, it'll either break or oftentimes it'll bend it so that it really won't straighten back up. So it's best if you don't want that look or you don't want damage, to keep it down to a single leader. So when it starts seeing up a shoot coming out the side, you just snip the tip of it off. Okay. But yeah, we let this one do its thing. It's kind of cool looking.
It is kind of cool.
You can get in there and play with it and hide, but yeah, it
kind of looks like a castle with turrets. If you got a little girl like me who wants a castle, a princess castle.
So here's a good example here. Really, I should snip these leaders that are forming right here off and leave this central one here. Great Again, example. This is another one this is Skywalker that's supposed to be tall and slender. And sometimes they do this, sometimes they don't. I have a DeGroot spire at home that's 15 years old that's never put on a branch. It's all just as straight up down as an arrow. So these really should be snipped off to keep it from doing that multi-leader thing.
Hey, you're getting a little bit of a request for the pipe vine if you're close to it.
Okay, we were having the pipe vine's on the other side of the parking lot, isn't it?
Okay.
A little bit in the berms if they haven't eaten it all up.
Okay.
Caterpillars on it the other day.
Okay, yeah, it's on the other side of the parking lot, so it's not really on our route, but we think that there may still be a little bit left on the berms. So we'll look out for that if the caterpillars hadn't ate it. Which we hope they have. Yeah, good point, Carol. That's the whole point, right?
We actually moved the caterpillars some last week from those plants out there because we just planted them about a month ago and they're only like 6 inches tall. So we transported those caterpillars to other plants in the garden, hoping to save those because if they totally eat a brand new plant up, it might not come back.
Right. And now we're kind of over here by some of our shade gardens. We're just kind of giving y'all peeks, little peeks of things as we are en route to our main areas of interest. Isn't that pretty?
So we were very fortunate when the building was built and the old building came down, but the new one was built in around 1989. New parking lot design. They put these large beds in the parking lot, and all but one of them has a spigot in it, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So these beds were filled with dwarfy old pine holly and rotunda holly and some junipers. And we're slowly taking them out and replace them with annuals, perennials, more interesting plants. So we have these big beds where we can have a lot of fun for a lot of interesting plants. You know, it's a very hot location, so obviously we choose things that we know that will do well, but we're also trialing things to see. So you could come here and see it's surrounded by islands of asphalt, but when you've prepared the soil properly and taking care of the plants and choosing the right plants, you can be very successful with a hot location. We do have drip irrigation in here. We've only had to water one time this year. I don't like to water regularly, every other day, as many people do. We generally water about every 5 to 7 days in periods of drought. And again, yesterday was the first day that we've watered here this year. So we wait till we start seeing a little bit of wilt and a little bit of stress before we start watering. And we water deeply. So that drip irrigation may run as much as 6 or 8 hours, depending how dry it is. And it saturates the soil thoroughly, and then it doesn't have to be done again. Until, again, 5 to 7 days, depending on rainfall.
And it's just so lush to be in the middle of this asphalt. We'll call it an asphalt island,
And
I guess.
This would have been planted mid-June. We do the area we're headed to next out on the lawn. We do that area first, and that's where our trial plants are. And then this happens after the trial plants go in. So this is, just a little over a month old.
So the asphalt was poured around. These aren't built on top of asphalt.
No, these are deep. So
deep,
the beds were put in first with the curbing, and the asphalt was put in around it. So no, that's deep soil. Now, it was terrible soil, and we've heavily amended it in the beginning. And then each year we till these beds because, again, they're annuals. Now, where we have perennials, obviously we don't, or trees and shrubs. But we till in that mulch each year, which adds to the organic matter and enriches the soil.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Is that the heated up?
It is heated up yellow.
Heated up. That was the Gaillardia that I was just showing y'all up close.
Plant, but we had such a mild winter that it came back this year. So it was wonderful.
Okay, we're going to see a lot more annuals as we get out here to the berms. That's why we just gave you a sneak peek of the parking lot.
There's a zowie next to that.
So pretty.
Perfect combination.
Zowie zinnia, always a favorite. Miss Huff, perennial lantana, always a fave.
One of my favorite conifers is Cryptomeria, japonica, Globosa.
I want to hug.
Japanese cedar, but it's not a cedar at all, and it's not prickly. It's soft to touch. You just want to hug it and rub. You know, it's a natural meatball for those people that like things that grow in round shapes, which I do. I just don't want to trim something round. But it does get big over time. We have had to trim this a little bit to keep it from blocking the view of people coming in the parking lot.
All right, here we go, back out into the sun.
Yeah, you're going to see a good one up there.
And the weeping common bald cypress.
Columnar sweet gum, weeping bald cypress. That's kind of interesting. There's our chocolate mimosa. Love it. Love a mimosa. Jason actually just installed a new mimosa. It's not a chocolate leaf colored one. It looks more like it's got the green leaf and a really dark pink bloom. Do you remember what it's called?
Envy's Pride, I believe.
Envy's Pride. Oh, I can't wait to see it.
I grew up with mimosas on the farm, and contrary to popular belief, and I think Carol will agree with me, they're not taking over the world. They're short-lived. There are no more mimosas than there were when I was a child. Actually, I think there's less.
And they show up where we scar the earth and provide for pollinators until something else moves in.
Look what we're seeing amongst Bermuda grass, which is non-native. Non-native.
This is our turf wheel. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, but just so that you can kind of see how we have it laid out here. Several different species of warm and cool season grasses. We even have a spot for a new installation. So I guess they're trying to decide what to put there. But I also always suggest to people that they come out here and take their shoes off and just kind of, walk around in the grass and see what it feels like, because it's kind of a big deal if you're going to spend a lot of money on sod. That it's pretty important that you agree with its texture and the way that it looks and its color. Some of these have more blue to their green than others do. And this is not irrigated. So this is a pretty good representative example of what things would look like in your landscape, because most people, let's be honest, don't have automatic irrigation on their grass.
I want to choose a beautiful flower named Carson Brown.
A beautiful flower. Look at that smile.
So Carson joined us actually in May of last year as a summer worker, student worker. And then she was able to join us in March of this year as a permanent full-time employee. So assists in the garden and all sorts of things, and keeps me sane and in straight. So yeah, we're standing here in front of All-American Selection bed. Carson, you want to say anything? All-American Selection is a non-profit organization, and originally they supported only seed-grown annuals and vegetables. And in recent years, they've been including perennials and vegetatively propagated plants as well. So we are now an official All-American Selection perennial trial site, which is another location we won't see today. But what you're seeing here are a bed of winners, and all of these have won in the last 5 years, although I've picked out some things way past years as well. But most of the things in here, the last 5 years of winners. Love this Vinca. The Mega Bloom series is Mega Bloom Orchid, and this
It
Mega
glows.
Bloom Pink Halo. And it's a lot of cool plants. And there's a beautiful okra there just beginning to produce, has red fruit. It has done really well for us in past years. The okra doesn't get tough even when the pod gets large. It's beautiful red stems as well as the pods being red.
Candlefire okra is the name of that one.
And then we have a wonderful celosia called Asian Garden. This is a wheat type celosia. You know, there's plume, coxcomb type, and wheat. This will end up being about 4 foot tall. We'll reseed for you in the garden as well. Celosia is a wonderful pollinator plant. A lot of beneficial wasps, parasitic wasps come to it. As you can see skippers on it right now. A really good plant for the landscape.
Big duck.
The Big Duck Gold, marigold, is one that's done really well for us. Being about 18 inches tall and produces these large flowers. This is a African type marigold. The French is a little small bloom. And then behind it there is Queenie Lime Orange Zinnia. That's Zinnia elegans. I love it for the beautiful variation in flower color. It does get some disease because it is an elegans, but more resistant than some of the older cultivars of elegans. As we come on down, this is an old winter from probably about 15 years ago. This is Indian Summer Black-Eyed Susan. Indian Summer has these huge blooms. These don't seem as big as they normally are, but a really good annual Black-Eyed Susan will reseed for you sometime in the landscape as well. Also, we have a fennel. Back to the vegetables. We've got a few vegetables tucked in here. This is a bulbous fennel. And when they sent me this about 4 years ago, when it first won the award, I thought this will never grow in Tennessee because bulbous fennel is not heat tolerant. Well, this is Antares. Antares, believe it or not, is quite heat tolerant. You can eat the bulbous part down there using it in stir fries. Kind of got a sweet licoricey taste to it. But I love it for an ornamental appeal. And of course, fennel attracts the swallowtail butterflies. And then in behind this bed, really can't see well, but we got some shrubs. Behind that are the All-American Selection peppers and tomatoes. So if you come out here, you can walk through those and look at those. There are a lot of vegetables in that series from All-American Selection now.
And we do have quite a bit. We've got some little areas of shade with some nice benches that are strategically placed in case you need to take a breather like we do. It's smoking hot out here. Oh, yeah.
So as we move along, we've got a Heart of the Jungle, the Heart of the Jungle Elephant Ear from Proven Winners. So now we're getting into the trial plants. So these are plants that the companies have sent us to see how well they do in our area. Some of them are already on the market. Some of them are not. We have lots of celosia here. We have a new lantana called just Luscious Red Zone. Luscious Royal Red Zone. And as it ages, it does get really red. So you can see
it's got a lot of red color on it already.
Wonderful plants, very heat and drought tolerant, and the Luscious series from Proven Winner is really, really good. And in front of that are the compact zinnias. These are the the Zahara zinnias. These are from Pan American Seed. These are compact zinnias. They're a cross between the narrowleaf zinnia and the Zinnia elegans. So that's the Zahara series of zinnias.
They're cute little guys. If you need something like at the front of your border, just give you some color. Those are super cute. I'm getting drenched by the sprinkler. Ah! Run.
So yeah, we started yesterday. Was really the first day that we've actually begun to water out in our raised beds because we've had pretty good rainfall this year, and so going to be a hot weekend. So we're watering. This bed, we try to put a lot of plants that are going to try bees and butterflies. So I'll just mention one here. This is bat-faced kufia. If you look at the flower, you see why it's called bat-face. You can see its little ears there, and it's the purple part is the mouth, the face of the bat. So bat-faced kufia, a great plant. Been around for years. This is nothing new. I just love to include it because it is great for the pollinators.
We've also got Pinta and Gumfrina out there.
Annual butterfly weed, the old-fashioned salvia, bonfire, and then the gaillardia. All great pollinator plants.
And just so you know, that tree in the middle is supposed to be dead. We did that on purpose.
So yeah, that was a cedar tree we put in for our bottle theme a few years ago, and we left the bottles on it until last year. And so now we're growing a exploding melon up it.
Cool.
So as we come around here, we're going to look at the bottle wall. And the bottle wall was built 5 or 6 years ago. It was part of our theme for recycling and repurposing bottles in the garden. We had 6,154 bottles in the garden. This structure has 1,000 bottles on it. It's 44 feet long, 12 feet tall in the center. And so we planted it up with an assortment of plants. I always like to make this bed really our focus with plants that we know do really well. This is salvia called Amistad. Amistad is from the Southern Living line of plant material. So does his own plant. 8 plants, been in the garden here over 10 years. So dependable hardy.
Stand beside it so people can see it's big.
So it gets 6 feet tall. You can cut it back. Now again, this has been coming back for 10 years. We have divided the clump a few times to keep from getting wider than we want. But you can trim this thing back halfway in the spring if you want, or even come out now and cut on it if you want to get it down to size. This is actually my favorite perennial salvia. I like it better than the salvia gardenicas, even the one called black and blue. It's a better bloomer. It doesn't wilt as much for me. I've actually taken all the gardenicas out of my home garden and replaced them with this black and blue. But a great plant to have in the garden. Again, some more pollinator plants. We've got Truffula Pink Gumfrina. Yeah. Truffula Pink is a new version of fireworks you may be familiar with. Truffula Pink is more compact. Great pollinator plant, starts blooming sooner than fireworks. They're both really good plants. It is sterile, so it will not reseed for you. So if you're looking for one that's going to come back or reseed, you would want to go with fireworks, but it ends up being quite a bit taller. Basil here, an upright downy mildew resistant basil called Pestel Perpetuo. Not probably the best for eating, but it's a beautiful basil. I love that minty green next to the Super Tunia bubble gum there beside it.
Man, these are so bright. You can see them from so far away, and they stand out in the landscape. They're so pretty.
Here we have our candlestick trees. We've become known for candlestick trees. Stick trees or plants in Jackson. This is an annual that we grow from seed each year. If you're here in August and September, these big candelabra-like yellow flowers that attract the pollinators, but we also grow this for the sulfur butterfly to feed on. So the butterfly lays its egg on here, the caterpillar feeds on it, and becomes that medium-sized yellow butterfly. It's similar to the cabbage leaper, but a little bit bigger, so don't get confused with it. We love the candlestick. We grow those and sell those at our plant sales. This is an old-fashioned plant called Snow on the Mountain. It's a euphorbia that reseeded from last year. And then a wonderful new salvia from Ball called White Flame. Isn't that great?
Wow.
So that's done from cuttings. It was sent to us as brooded cuttings, and it's a really good salvia to grow in the landscape. Good for the pollinators. It'll be on the market next year. So lots of fun plants on here. This blue salvia is called Soul Blue.
It's a mealy.
Mealy cup, yes, or an ACA.
So you can see
species, so
how the blooms are kind of got that fuzziness to them.
Yeah, again, good plant for pollinators.
And these do great in containers also. I've got several of those in pots at my house. And here's a full scale picture of the wall. I mean, it's huge.
Let's walk over and look at the little vincas. And then we'll hit a couple more things before the hydrangeas. Then we got to get out to Carol out at the tall trees and shrubs. It's one of my favorite collections of woody plants here.
We're doing pretty good, y'all. We still have 20 minutes, and so I mean, even though we could stay out here for hours and talk about this stuff, we just want to give y'all clips and glimpses so that maybe if you feel like it, you can come out here and take a trip and do some self tours. The gardens are open to the public, daylight to dark, no cost. So feel free to come out and take some walks around. We try to have many of the things, especially out here in the trials, labeled.
So Celeste, how pronounce that name?
Soiree.
Soiree, and then it's Kauai.
Kawaii.
I have trouble saying Kauai.
Kawaii.
So this is one of the plants I'm most excited about this year are these little vincas, and they have a bloom about half the size of a standard vinca. This is from Suntory, one of our new trial companies this year. And Suntory is a company out of Japan. And they have some really cool plants. You may be familiar with their line of Sundinias and Sun Parasol. Those are Diplodenias and Mandavillas. They also have a line of Sturtiva, Scavola, but I love these little vincas. And aren't they just cute?
They're cute.
Look at this little, I love, this is my favorite one, the little white one here. So these can be used in the ground or as in containers as well. And they've been on the market actually a couple years, but they sent them to us this year since we're new to their program. But I think brand new this year is this double series. And it's Soiree double orchid. Again, I have trouble saying that. In the greenhouse, I wasn't very fond of these, but we've got them out in the garden, and the doubles are they're really cool.
They are looking better.
If you didn't see the foliage, you probably wouldn't know it was a vinca. So as we come around the back side, you'll see the other two colors of that double that's looking really good. So I think there's 7 or 8 of the miniatures in the series. And then look at this double combination. So this is double pink and double white. It's really not a white, it's a pale pink. They're calling that white, but isn't that a beautiful combination?
That does look pretty
So
together.
yeah, once we got in the ground, it's really taken off and looking much
And these
better.
seem even smaller than those over there, the balloons.
It is a little, and there's a little variation in the series. There's one down there on the end that seems to be more of a ground covery type.
Oh, yeah.
Opposed to the more upright ones. So there's a little variation.
Look how flat these are. Yeah, in comparison. Yeah, pretty.
So we mentioned the salvia a while ago, white flame. I'm going to let Carol talk about these other two because she's really fond of them. So
Which white salvia is that?
white flame.
Is Farinaceae straight?
We just talked about it over there.
Okay. Yeah, the salvia farinaceae are tender perennials. Sometimes they'll overwinter, often not. And I love the blue ones, but honestly, I didn't appreciate the white ones until I used some. It's really sometimes you just want that white spire and it sets off the blue. Remember, blue kind of disappears. So if you use bright things behind it, it makes them pop. This is one of my favorites, though, this Rockin blue suede shoes. It's one of the proven winners, and these are hybrids. They're complex hybrids, I think, Longus baccata and Farinaceae and some other ones. What they're doing is getting these rich colors of blues, these darker calyx. And you think hummingbirds like red until you put out some of these Garaniticas. The hummingbirds love the Garaniticas. And as you see all the pollinators on that white salvia as well. When you're planting for pollinators, it's hard to beat salvias. And I admit to being something of a salvia nut. That's skyscraper, isn't it?
Rockin fuchsia.
Fuchsia.
Okay, Rockin fuchsia.
Also from proven winners.
It came back for me. I don't know if it's supposed to be annual. But we
It didn't come out here on the berms, but it did for Carol. She's a little bit more. We're really open out here, and it's sold as a zone. I don't know if it's a zone 8 or 9, so it's really not meant to be hardy. But we do have, if you have a mild winter, possibly.
Yes, love. I'm a salvia nut, so yeah, I could go on about too long, so I won't.
We do love the salvias.
One thing I was really excited about last year, well, to be honest, I wasn't in the beginning. They sent all the sunflowers to me in the greenhouse. They looked rough. They looked really rough. We got them in the ground, and man, did they take off. And so they're from proven winners, and this is Sun Credible. So Sun Credible it's not seed grown. And I suspect it's sterile. I haven't had any seedlings.
They are sterile.
And being sterile, it produces non-stop blooms, so it's not putting the energy into making that seed. As you see, you'll see old flowers here. The new flowers grow over the top of them, so you do not have to deadhead them. These flowered until frost last year. Yeah. Now, late September into October, they begin to get, ratty and looking a little rough. Perhaps if you deadheaded them and cleaned them up and maybe fertilized them again, they would have really continued on. But they bloomed right up into frost last year. There are 3 plants in this area that I'm standing. So it's a bushy plant. It really branches out. And the height, it'll end up being about 3.5 by the end of the summer in height. So look for the Sun Credible sunflowers. Also, because they're sterile, they don't have the pollen that's going to get in your dining room table. So if you use them for cut arrangements, you don't have to worry about that.
I love the size for cut flowers.
Yes, absolutely. A big old sunflower is beautiful, but it's hard to put in a vase, where this works really well. When we were in the parking lot, we saw the heated up yellow. This is the heated up scarlet Gaillardia, again from proven winners. So a wonderful plant. Again, heat and drought tolerant, and might come back for you depending on how cold it is and how wet it is during the winter time.
Is this our fennel forest?
This is our fennel forest. You know, I've decided to just let the fennel take it and then it'll smother out the weeds.
It's so cool. I like it. Okay.
Okay,
So
yes.
walking by beautiful finca, love finca, heat and drought tolerance. We have some nice coleus in here. And then we're trying some dipladenias in the bed to give some sun for it.
And our brand new garden sign, thank
thanks
you.
to the Master Gardeners for providing us with the new UT garden sign last year. Looks great.
So pretty.
Quickly, we're going to touch on the paniculata hydrangea collection, and then we're going to go out to the trees and shrubs. So this is hydrangea paniculata. These are sun-loving hydrangeas. If you're not familiar with sun-loving hydrangeas, there are some that love the sun. They will grow in some shade, but they really do best in flowering in at least 6 to 8 hours of sunlight. So you can look at all these. They were planted at different times as I've acquired them. If one happened to die, we would replace it. So they're not necessarily all the same age. Carol's been over here looking at silver dollar. This is one of the original ones that was planted in. This is quick fire. Quick fire is early to flower, quick to bloom. So it's already flowered a good older one as well. You come on down here. This is Phantom. This is Phantom. Phantom will be a big guy. And you can probably guess what this one is. It's still the standout in the collections. This is Limelight. And your Limelight really is what brought the paniculatas to people's attention. There's cultivars that's been around a long time, like Tardiva and what was called PG. But when Proven Winners came out with this thing, it opened the whole world up to the paniculatas. And so we have about 45 in the collection. There's no doubt probably 75 in the U.S. They're not easy to find necessarily. New cultivars always coming on the market. The very ends here, we have the
And
more.
I love the foliage on quick fire. I feel like it's really attractive.
Stays handsome after it blooms,
Yes.
which cannot be said of all these paniculata cultivars.
Agreed.
And it's one of the ones that I prefer for that reason.
So on the ends here, we have some of the dwarf cultivars. This is Baby Lace. Baby Lace looks a lot better at my house. This soil has not been amended at all out here, other than the mulch that goes down. It is not watered. We do water when we establish them, but that's it. So you'll see a little dieback, a little burn on some of these from years past, but that's because we are not doing any maintenance to them. We do fertilize them in the spring and mulch them once a year, and that's about it. Standing here by Carol, the growing by Carol here is Little Lime, again, a great dwarf cultivar. And then this is Bobo. Bobo has taken a few years to take it off. It's a slower one to actually start flying, but it's looking pretty good in the garden right now. So
It is looking nice.
This one's a Proven Winner as well that's becoming more available. All right, we better head out to the
green tints to me are just an overview of the size, different how many colors and shapes and times of bloom. So.
Yeah, so we don't have time to go through all of them, but please come out and peruse these rows and rows of paniculata. I'm loving Bobo. I planted that in my garden about 2 years ago, and I've had sparse blooms on it, but this is promising to know that it takes a few years to take off and get going. So just another example of how the display gardens can help you gauge the process of things that are going on in your own garden, right? See, if it didn't perform well this season, I was going to jerk it out, but now I might leave it a few more years. Okay, so on our way to the columnar trees, we are going to walk through our redbud collection. I'm going to take y'all on the long route.
Just to talk a little bit about the redbuds, it used to be a tree just for the spring bloom, very early spring bloom. But now we've got ones that are selected for weeping habits, ones for dwarf compact habits. This is probably little ace or ace of hearts. I already mentioned little woody. We got ones with that golden foliage and variegated foliage. And Jimmy Werner is kind of the guru. He just retired from NC State, but he will just sort of dream up these incredible, like now we have weeping purple redbuds, the one called Ruby Falls, which is spectacular right now at my house and is in a lot of hot sun, and the foliage is holding up well.
My favorite has got to be that, what's that hot pinky one? Appalachian Red. Oh, love it.
So Carol's going to talk about some upright trees and conifers, but I just want to say about 10 years ago, I don't know why, but I've become fascinated with tall, slender trees and shrubs. And I've really been collecting them as much as if I find something, I'm going to add it to the collection. And you'll see a few that's gotten a little wider out here than I thought they were going to get.
Side note, variegated redbud. Okay.
Here in love these tall plants. So, Carol, you jump right in.
Well, I just want to start by saying, you know, these are advertised a lot of times as plants for narrow spaces. But I think we need to expand that narrow definition because, like, when you want to call attention to something, you give it an exclamation point. And these are fascinating when you drop them into, you got a whole bunch of roundy-moundy plants. All of a sudden, you're lacking drama. So it's a great plant. Plus, sometimes you don't want to have a canopy blocking your view of the sky or the valley. So these are going to frame your view. So let's expand that notion. Evergreen ones, of course, are going to also give you a lot of winter interest. And again, we're trying these out. We found that a lot of these narrow arborvitaes do quite well for us. Won't have time to go into a whole lot of specifics, but I don't think they have to be evergreen. There's a series now of upright forms of Hibiscus syriacus or Rose of Sharon, shrub althea, whatever you may call it in your region. And they're getting a little bit broader than the tags originally said, which is true of any of these plants, y'all. Any new plant tends to get bigger than they thought in the beginning because they're new plants. We just don't know yet. So the purple pillar is a favorite. It's a really good one.
And are these for the most part sterile, Carol? These upright ones?
I don't believe the pillar series is sterile. But
Okay.
they are for sterility.
Okay.
So simply just, if you want to, cut them off before they make seed. If you're worried about that after they bloom.
Oh my goodness.
Upright plant there. So,
I found an interesting accent that I might love to add to my garden.
Dancing in the wind.
Whoa, it's windy.
Upright evergreens include some broadleaf evergreens. So that's a yopine.
It's a yopine called
Will Fleming.
Scarlet Peach.
Okay.
It's a southern living plant as well.
Better than Will Fleming.
Yes, an improved version of that.
If you shoot down there, you see we have a big series of, some of these are new. So I would prefer that we go across the road and talk about some of these we've had a while, some of these deciduous trees. Again, sometimes you don't want that canopy, but you want some height. So they started breeding. There's a form of English oak, Quercus robur, that's naturally 3 out of 4 acorns come back narrow. So they decided to use those genetics. And the problem with that one is it had powdery mildew a lot of times, especially in our climate. So they crossed it with our native swamp white oak, Quercus bicolor. And they've come up with some of these, which is beautiful. Oh, I know. I had to have these because part of my reason in my landscape was I wanted to frame my views to the valley and not cover the canopy over. But
This is so pretty.
isn't it pretty? Now, the Kindred Spirit and Regal Prince were the first couple that came out. And now they've been taking some of those genes and hybridizing with some Quercus alba, the white oak, which is notorious for fall color. So we've got these that are going to have fall color.
Oh, tall,
The first one
skinny,
here
and
is-
fall
is-
color?
is-
Oh, no.
The first one here is Kindred Spirit.
That's Regal Prince. And yeah, sometimes they get a little bit broader than predicted. And every now and then a limb wants to go haywire on you. And if it bothers you, climb up there and
Chop it.
cut it out. But often if you just kind of leave them alone, they kind of right themselves a little bit as they blow in the wind. So Slender Silhouette might be the sweet gum that makes you decide you like sweet gum, because it does this wonderful narrow thing. And like all sweet gums, it's very unfinicky. It's going to grow in almost any soil where you plant it, and it's a fast grower. So yes, it does make the little gumballs. Everybody always is the next question.
But think about it. It's tall and slender. Where do the gumballs end up?
Right
Here.
Right there. Good
Easy to
point.
make up. Nobody hates sweet gum more than I do, but I love this plant.
And you can
Awesome.
start it with shrubs, and that way you don't have to worry about the little gumballs at all. So great, and it has good fall color some years. It's a little.
I will say Slender Silhouette is best planted in poor dry soil and it will splay if you've got it in irrigated soil or rich soil. So keep that in mind.
Look at the color on this double Rose of
So in
Sharon.
between all the upright trees, we have a Rose of Sharon.
Yep, and the doubles tend to be more sterile because it's hard for the insects to get in there to pollinate. This is a tulip poplar. It's been around a long time, a narrow form of tulip poplar. And honestly, almost every species that's commonly in the landscape now, you can find narrow forms if you want to hunt them out, as Jason has evidence as you scan on down here. It's incredible how they run across.
So, tulip poplars are straight state tree. If you don't have room for a full-size one in your landscape, Arnold's a great choice.
Where are we on time?
We've got 5 minutes.
Okay, good deal. Ginkgos, you're looking for that. You want a tree for fall color, but you don't have a very big garden.
So that's Fastigatus. It's a cultivar.
Oh, and I meant to mention that because we call columnar plants, a lot of times you'll see the cultivar name is fastigiata when you say it in Latin, fastigiated plants. And then I might be having, I'm from Mississippi, so don't trust how I pronounce Latin by any means. But that sounds pretty sophisticated. Columnar is what we often call these things. So
Whoa, look at this one, like a tornado.
Yeah, this is Zelkova. I think Zelkovas are really kind of underutilized
Ice cream cone.
in West Tennessee anyway. And it's in the elm family. Maybe you can tell by that foliage, and usually a very clean foliaged plant and has a good fall color. Everclear, this is an elm. This is lace-bark elm, which we know are resistant to the Dutch elm disease. So far, anyway, I used to be able to say bulletproof about certain plants, but I've learned that that isn't always true because we don't know what's going to come along next time.
We actually do have a list of the columnar plants that are in this collection, so I could get that to Natalie and have her post it along with this.
You've been getting lots of list requests. So
Got
any
it.
list you've got, we'll send out.
It's in our screens handout too.
Yes, yes, it is.
Skyward, Lindsay Skyward, a form of our common bald cypress. There's so much genetic variety in the common bald cypress. Weeping forms, compact forms. Everyone seems to be a little bit different. All right, let's keep going. Hornbeam, columnar form. Oh yeah, Tupelo Tower. If you like to stick with the natives, this is a form of our native sweet black gum. Excuse me, Nisa sylvatica.
Does not produce balls.
Oh,
Don't
good.
get confused.
Yeah, black gum and sweet gum are not related. There's nothing. The females will make little berries that the birds like to eat, but not a problem.
Does the foliage on this one turn reddish in the fall, like the fire one?
It's not as colorful, I don't think.
Okay.
But it does get some fall color.
Most,
And I do think that's going to, it looks pretty tight now, but I do think that's going to get out to maybe 10 or 12 feet at maturity at width.
Okay.
This is growing on me.
Oh, yeah, variegated foliage, really pretty.
Yeah, and I mean, for being out in the hot sun, which often variegated foliage says, not happy. That one's doing really, really well. Anything else you see out here that you really want to feature? I think
Well, I can't believe it, y'all, but we have done it with 1 minute to spare. Woo!
If you bet on these guys not being able to keep it under an hour, you would have lost. I would have probably lost my money. I'll be honest. I actually thought that these three were going to need reined in, and they perfectly hit their time.
We did a good job. And
Well, I just want to remind everyone the UT Garden's located in Knoxville on the IAG campus, in Crossville at the Research and Education Center there, and in Jackson are open daylight to dark year-round for your enjoyment, and we invite you to come out.
all right.
come see us.
All right. Natalie, any parting words?
All right, JC Carroll, thanks so much for sweating with us out here. And Celeste, of course, the master of the Zoom meeting. Thanks so much for hosting
Thank
us.
y'all.
And Madison County, glad you could be here.
Bye.
We'll see you in 2 weeks in Chattanooga. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Bye.